you are gonna see some cool ass shit.
Yeah, you don't want two Flavor Flays.
Heart transplants, brain surgeries. I've seen it all.
Dude, that's fucking dope.
Walk up and just get it, whatever it is.
Yeah, bro.
I'm trying not to laugh, bro, but Josh is fucking killing me.
Guess what Navy SEALs do, motherfucker? They communicate and they're on the same fucking page.
Whoa.
And we're live.
Welcome, everybody, to the podcast. Happy Hoodlums is on its official episode 100 with your host, Zachary Kane Sampson, the big guy on my left, maybe your right. I don't know how that shit's laid out. And your boy, Kemper Woodruff, in this house. Captain
Hell
of the
yeah.
ship, rocking through conversations. So this is big for us because we have reached our 2-year mark, which is A, high praise for consistency, and B, it's high time for reconsiderations and of where we want to take this thing for the future, because Zach and I have been kind of working on things for a while now. I just officially got my real estate license. Yeah.
Boom!
So I can dedicate a little bit more time to this, and soon more resources help this thing grow.
Yeah.
But we've done a lot over these past 2 years.
And we've got a lot planned. Still.
I guess first, I'd like to know if there's anything that stands out to you growth-wise, or that you kind of discovered about yourself through doing the podcast, that stands out to you. I know for me, I've mentioned it before, but it's been a huge thing, almost like a form of therapy,
Mm.
to have a place that I come to each week, just
Yeah.
a check-in. And I know that really dawned on me in the beginning when we first started it, because I had started doing Amway stuff for a short time.
Yeah.
And Amway has tons of meetings that they ask you to go to. Tons of planning meetings. And really, it's interesting because it's going over the same topic just from many, many different angles. So it's kind of like a podcast in that regard.
Yeah.
And I really loved it. And I found that it was a very fulfilling thing for me, that helped me keep up with my lifestyle that was getting increasingly more demanding and busy pace-wise. So I know that's one thing that stood out to me about the podcast.
For me, it wasn't, it was like, it was more of, rather than the podcast being something to go to and like check in every week, it was more of like, can I get myself to like do something that I'm not necessarily comfortable doing, which is recording a conversation and being intentional about the conversation and not letting it die and like learning those skills. But then at the same time, I started to like really enjoy hearing other people's stories more than I used to. And so I started to enjoy just that whole part of it, and then enjoying the process of learning how to talk.
So do you think that kind of was something that you discovered that you didn't even know you were missing in life because you just weren't curious enough, or like you were not diving deep enough into conversations to like ask people like who they are, where they're from, kind of shit like that?
I don't know if it was that I was missing it. I think it definitely enhances my life to like know how to pull information out of people. Which is mostly learned by watching you talk to people on the podcast, because I don't have a whole lot of like interesting questions when I ask people things. But watching you talk to people has definitely improved how I communicate. On top of just everything else. But having met a lot of the interesting people that we've had conversations with over the last 2 years has been pretty fucking dope. And it's the most popular episode on the channel, unless it's changed since then. But the Dale Comstock episode put a lot, like, left a lot for me to like think about, because when he told that story, we've talked about it before a bunch, but when he talked about the story of being prepared for the helicopter crash,
Mm-hmm.
I've used that type of idea, that methodology, for since then.
That
Like
is
having plans.
conditioning,
Exactly.
aka auto suggestion, programming of the subconscious mind.
Having plans, regardless of if it's going to happen or not. Knowing what you're going to do in this situation, if it were to ever happen, even years
Mhm.
down the road. And so like hearing those types of things from the people that we've talked to has been super dope. And just overall,
Wow.
just getting to do the whole thing has been fun.
While you're on the topic of Dale Comstock, that's actually kind of funny because that was one of the things that I wrote in what I want to talk about.
Okay.
And so we're going to get back to that in just a moment because I have a quote from him
Okay.
from when I was doing some life coaching stuff with him. But I had this kind of realization about what I call the basket of beliefs, right? So everyone
Okay.
tells you, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. A lot of people have heard that, right? And I really have kind of thought about it, not only from what I've gone through, but what some of my family members have gone through. And just, I think it's universal
Yeah.
in that people invest themselves in a person, an opportunity, and they bank everything about uh, every belief that their life is going to turn out really awesome, and that their dreams are going to come true on this one thing going right. And it made me realize that each day you really have to work on weaving your basket of beliefs tighter, because it's not so much that if I don't, work out with this one relationship, that my life is gonna fail, and that I'm not gonna have this incredible life that I feel is waiting for me inside,
Or if I
and
don't
that
get that job or this promotion, or
yeah,
I can't get this tattoo or something like that, right?
yeah.
It all
I've
ties
noticed
in.
that rock bottom that people feel is it's totally associated with thinking that this person is your basket, right?
Yeah.
All my eggs are in this person or this situation.
Can I
But
jump
really,
in real quick?
yeah, hit it.
So I've referenced this book several times on the podcast, but there's this book called Attached. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
relationship attachment style book. And in it, it talks about uh, how anxious people are attached to people, and that when they get into a relationship, the way that they think is essentially like what you're talking about, where this person is their only person. If it fails, it fails, and they'll never find anyone else. And the way that they suggest to anxious people to kind of get rid of that thought is to
Mm-hmm.
understand the idea of abundance, which is what we've also talked about a lot as well. Is that there's an
Mm-hmm.
abundance of people in the world, and there's an abundance of job opportunities. There's an abundance of everything out there. So one thing is not a make or break for your life. But what it also tells people to do, if they're anxiously attached to these things, is take it off of the pedestal, because it's on a pedestal. That's the only reason why you believe that this is the only person and it'll never work with anybody else. Right? It's because they're on a pedestal. You need to knock them down. And you may not want to do this to somebody that you love, right? but looking at their faults and being like, oh, they do this, or they have this thing about them that isn't the best. And so understanding that, you know, not everything is fucking amazing. You know, maybe that job you want is way stressful. It's like, okay, that's gonna add a lot of fucking stress to my life, more hours. Ugh, God, that's not gonna be good. But fuck it, hey, it's where I want to go. So it's like pulling things off the pedestal, but also understanding that there's abundance might help
Yeah,
fix
I
the
think
basket problem you're talking about.
the abundance thing is really the key,
Yeah.
and that your ability to believe is kind of made by tending to that every day and making sure that you're doing steps that incorporate these new desires, like that you're making room for it in your life, and that your basket can carry everything that you're wanting without the bottom falling out,
Yeah.
you know I feel like the weight of certain areas in your life where you hold too much stock, you need it too much, like you want it too much without being really ready for what's asked of you to maintain that. And it causes the bottom to fall out, and then everything goes off course, right? But you can focus on everything at once, in a sense, if what you're really tending to is your willingness to believe and observing your ability based on how much action you're putting in, right? And that's why they say in the Bible, faith without works is dead, right? So it's like you have to work diligently, knowing that this work that you're putting in here is going to take you over there. And you don't have to see the whole path and all the in betweens, you know? You might think it's that this one person, but this one person is really just the vehicle to get you down the line a little bit, get you a little more prepared for the next and the next until you find that one, you
Yeah.
know?
As long as
If
there's lessons learned and everything. And if you're open to those lessons, you'll be prepared and you'll continue to learn and improve yourself.
hmm Now to bring this back around. So Dale Comstock said to me one time, he was giving me a talk, and he said, depression comes from looking in the rear view mirror of life. And he said, how do you know you're looking in the rear view? I'll tell you. You're looking in the rear view because your reality is small. Your perspective on that situation is just really small, and it's always backwards. It's always an event that you're looking behind you, that you wind up getting depressed because you're super narrowly focused at what has been, and you're not able to make good decisions about what's coming at you. He said, when you take back control of your life and you're in the driver's seat and you start looking out the windshield, you see all these routes, that you can possibly take.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not so narrowly focused, and you can dodge, the accidents here and there and find a better route, because it's not all roses on the way there. Roses got thorns and shit, and you're going to find them, especially if you're not dodging things and navigating like carefully and intentionally. But you got to really take in the scenery of life in order to navigate it. You know, you can't just look at it, like you got to see your way through it.
Yeah.
And what you start to see is really based on your intentions, of where you're trying to go, because that filter kind of blocks out what isn't working and shows you what is, and you're going to be able to go down that path until you find a stumbling block in that
Yeah.
subject area, and then you got to reorient yourself.
Jim Carrey actually has an interesting like quote about depression. And
Mhm.
he says it's basically your soul saying it doesn't want to play this character anymore.
Yeah.
And essentially, the way that I interpret that as is, and I'll link it to, kind of to your rearview mirror thing, is
Mm-hmm.
to stop playing this character, aka stop looking in the rearview mirror, and live intentionally and change who you are. Like
Mm-hmm.
depression, and I have family members who have been diagnosed with like clinical depression and shit. So like there are some situations where it's like a chemical imbalance, right? And most of the depression that I'm talking towards too is like the sadness shit, where it's like you just don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to do anything. And there's all these things that are constantly like in your head, and which in order to like get through that, what I did was to literally do a fucking 180 in lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I was in high school, that was the most. If it wasn't depression, that was the closest I ever was. Um, and that's when I started working out. Was my senior year of high school, and I never looked back. So it's like you take a complete 180 of who you are, shift and change, and then you become someone that you fucking love because you did it from the darkest fucking moment, and you did it
Mm-hmm.
for you. And so living intentionally, and when you finally realize that you want to be a different character, be you realize all the other options, all the other roads you can take when you start looking out the front windshield. And you're like, holy shit, there's so many different things I could do. I don't have to be this person all the fucking time.
Bro, I'm gonna take it right from there
Okay.
because this goes right in line with another thing that I took note of. So
Boom.
I was waiting for my grandparents yesterday while my grandma went to the doctor, and in their doctor's office they had a book by a really famous artist or writer author named Brene Brown, and it's called Atlas of the Heart. And I just picked it up. I was like, that's a dope ass title. And it was a author. My mom had been trying to tell me to read this book called Daring Greatly. That's like a really famous book by her. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna check it out, you know? And in it, I went to this chapter and it was about perfectionism, right? As a
Okay.
trait. It said, where perfectionism exists, shame is always lurking. And that shit blew my mind.
Bro,
I was like,
real quick, I've said this on the podcast before, but
"Mhm."
perfectionism is insecurity, which is what shame
Yeah,
is.
but it went through like the different seeds of
And way more
like,
in depth about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it explained the difference between shame and guilt and humiliation and like where these different things kind of come into play and really shows you like a trickle down of perfectionism and what's inside of that emotionally. And just kind
Okay.
of like the Russian dolls went from a thing to a thing to
Oh
a thing,
yeah, yeah.
you know? And that was so fascinating to me. And there's a ton that I can kind of read about it, but honestly, um, it's just this feeling of you not being good enough, you know? And sometimes when things aren't good enough for your satisfaction level, obviously you have to take some responsibility from it, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not ready to accept it and move into an action phase to change your results that you're getting, you're just going to kind of blame it and then feel that shame and guilt and spiral out right there. But if you go back to just like simplifying it to that basket of beliefs, right? Like I can believe for this thing happening because I'm doing good things in that area, you know? So maybe if I feel that I've ran into a pattern in my relationships, you know, I can look up a book about people that might have, you know, maybe it's I've always dated alcoholics, you know? Or you're like, I don't know, I just attract strippers or something. Well, there's something in there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
something in there. And so no matter what it is, you can just kind of go down that rabbit trail through your intuition. And as you kind of learn and educate yourself in this area that made you feel uncomfortable, you got to seek out that point where it's like all of a sudden I go from knowing what I'm doing in this arena to like, whoa, I'm out of pocket. I don't have the expertise for this. You start to question. When you find that area where you start to get uncomfortable, you start your research, you know? And it made me start to look at um, what if we thought of ourselves the same way that corporations think of things, right? Like even the best corporations in the world, they're they they're an entity, right? We consider a corporation an entity, right? Just like a person's an entity. That's why we tax them separately than we get taxed. So even the best corporations can put out a shitty product sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But they don't stop making products. They look at what actually fucking happened, you know, and just kind of take the data from it. But I feel like as humans, we get way too personal in the data, in breaking down the data and the feedback. And so it's like we stop researching and just decide to make another product. And it's like, well, if your last one just fucked up, right? Maybe you should do a little bit of research to design a better product that'll get you that outcome that you're wanting, so you can be
Yeah.
profitable instead of not,
Or more
you know?
testing, or maybe your fucking lead engineer was a dope and he fucked off or some shit, you know?
Yeah, and it's just like the world has so many options for you. And I think one of the things this podcast showed me is that it doesn't have to be perfect, because I definitely have that perfectionism thing that I've had to, constantly challenge. And it hindered me for a long time from putting anything out. And so the podcast for me was like, fuck it. I'm going to put it out raw. I'm going to give you this unpolished thing. And I hope you enjoy the contribution, you know?
Well, let me say this. The podcast didn't start because of that. You had finally got to the point that you were like, I want to do this so badly that perfection doesn't matter, because we had the equipment to do the podcast for a year.
Yeah.
We had microphones, mixers, and we had our fucking cameras. We could have done
I
it
put
at
the money up.
exactly. So we could have
Yeah.
done it for a whole year before. We could be at year 3 right now had we started when we had all the equipment, but we didn't because of, different things. But eventually it got to the point where you're like, fuck it. I want to do it so much that
I
perfection
can
doesn't
tell you
matter.
that was the thing, though. That's really what it was, dude. Was like I have this vision in my head and I just want it to be fucking right. I want it to be perfect, And it got to this point where I was like, if I'm not gonna do anything, then what's the point? It's never gonna be that, you
Exactly.
know? And so I just kind of was like, we need to start this thing. And you were kind of in the same boat, I think, in a sense, in like wanting it to be better than it was.
Yeah.
But you put a lot of really like consistent effort into trying to program and figure out how to do it on Discord, and then all right, let's get it on different streaming services and platforms so we can kind of spread it and work the image. So I got to give you all the credit on doing the legwork. Once this thing got rolling, I was just kind of talking to people, finding interesting people, and be like, "Hey, you want to come on?"
Well,
So
I appreciate that. I've been slacking on like uh the diversification of where we're where it shows. Fucking Spotify is very outdated. It's very it hasn't been updated in a while. So it doesn't have all the episodes. But my slacking, and we both kind of slacked on our jobs, like, right? Like, fucking, you got to get our fucking guests. I got to fucking make sure on the back end the shit runs good. And we're both slacking a little bit. But season 3, we're going to go fucking hard. At least on my end. I don't know what you got planned.
Nope, that sounds about right. Sounds like.
I don't know what you got going on, but I'm going to go hard.
Yeah. I love it. You know? Yeah. But really, it's like, this is kind of an interesting journey that has created a better trend in my life. You know, it's not just me showing up on Thursday to do the podcast with you. Mm-hmm. This is something that's helped me to show up in every other area of my life more consistent and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to something, because you were talking about like depression, and I'm someone who's experienced a ton of it. A ton of it, dude. Like, I've had so many moments where I was really close to, you know, like, even offing myself before. Mm-hmm. And I can say that those thoughts, especially if you know someone that has like a severe head injury, they come on quick and it's different. And I've had a lot of those, but that was something that I didn't really notice or even like take into account as a factor of like what a head injury can do to somebody on a psychological level, until I had to fill out a questionnaire like everywhere that I went, you know, especially when just being alive and like navigating your day to day is like discombobulating. I was living with going to like 6 different kinds of specialists, and they were constantly finding that they didn't know what to do, so they would send me to somewhere else. And all I had to keep my sanity was a folder, like a manila folder that you would put shit in. I was writing all the different notes of like where I have to be at what time. And that was the only way that I could navigate, because I couldn't remember. People would ask me like, where do you have to go after this? I'm like, I don't even fucking know. I don't know where the car is. Like, thank God. You know, thank God I have a family that I can like call, but yeah, it was like fucked up. But one of the things that I never took into account was how like suicidal thoughts and things like that can really hit you.
Yeah.
But I think that so many people, myself included, that's why I can say this from experience, you're not able to see your options when you're in a fucked up state of mind, you know? And that's why exercise is so important, to get you out of that state of mind and to take your power back. Just by
puts
showing
you in your body.
Yeah, well, it shows you that you're strong, you know?
That too.
Gives you a quick like endorphin release. And once you get that kind of spike, it's almost like you climbed a tree and you can see a little bit farther as around you, you know, rather than just being stuck in the forest, right? And not knowing where you're at. But the other week, and I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast, I was eating Carl's Jr. in my fucking car, watching The Godfather, parked in a parking lot, and it was like a rainy, shitty night, and I really didn't want to cook for myself, and I was so grateful that I can just drive down the street and get a delicious fucking fatty fatso fucking burger. You know, I had 2 patties and onion rings, and I'm putting fries in my burger and shit.
Fucking probably a milkshake or some shit. Dude, fucking slurping it down.
For $12, I went fucking legendary ham, you know? And I just had this moment of such appreciation for what we have in terms of the freedoms. And I was like, fuck yeah, America, with my Carl's Jr. fucking burger and The Godfather. Like,
That should have been the 2024 fucking Carl's Jr. commercial. Just fucking Kemper in some beat up ass car or some shit, and then just fucking America.
so happy, dude. I didn't give a fuck. Like, yeah, there's tweakers in the parking lot over here or whatever, but I'm just free as an American doing my fucking thing. And
Doing
I
your
was like,
fucking thing.
people don't realize how easy it is to have a lot of fun when you don't put such high stakes pressure on believing that everything that you're doing right now has to go right for you to wind up with what you want. You know, if you give up on all of that fucking shit needing to be perfect and just enjoy the fuck out of all the work that you get to put that work in. And when you're like in a state where you're just enjoying it, like relaxing away from it, relax to the max, bro. Like fucking enjoy that shit.
Facts.
And yeah, that really dawned on me in a big way. Um and I'm so happy that I've learned life can be more full without being overwhelming if you really just appreciate what you have. And fatherhood's definitely been a huge lesson in that, cuz I'm now I'm looking around like, "Oh my god, how awesome is it going to be to, like, when my daughter's a toddler, be able to just like take her down by a river and let her touch a mossy rock that she's never felt for the first time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And just see her be like, ew, that's gross. Or maybe she likes it, like grips it, is like, what the heck is with this, right? And it's just that small moment. It costs you really like nothing. And you can go experience it. And you can do that same thing in other people's lives. Just because they're an adult doesn't mean that like you can't blow the fucking doors off their brain.
Well,
Like when
dude,
I
you
gave you,
do it with food for me all the time.
that's what I was gonna say. I gave you tiramisu, and you're like, what?
Yeah. Well, like you've done it so many times, and it's like I tell people this all the time. I grew up really like because my family, for the most part, is like picky eaters, and I kind of got fucking tired of that. And
Mhm.
so I was like, you know what? When we started hanging out a lot, before Happy Hoodlums, way back, wonderful entertainment shit, um, and we started doing like hanging out and eating more. I was like, dude, just suggest shit to me. And I told you the things that I couldn't do, like spicy. I can't do super spicy. You're like, all right, we can work with that. And you've blown my fucking mind with so many different fucking things. And so it's like, yeah, that's the type of shit. Just showing people, it's fun to show people like stuff that is genuinely new to them, and you get to see like their real reaction for the
Mhm.
most part. And it's like when I took Shauna to the gun store, she was
Mhm.
so reluctant. But
Yeah.
at the end she was like, I want a gun. And I want it to
Yeah.
be pink. She didn't want to hold the gun at all when we first went in. And
Yeah.
but then at the end she was like, I want one. So it's cool to see people experience new shit for the first time. And I
Yeah.
think it's like it's also like being the type of person you are, you get that experience with a lot of things because you get to show people things for the first time a lot because of who you are. You just take people to
That's
do
my
things.
point.
Yeah.
You know, that stems from my mom. She gave me a piece of wisdom when I was little. She said, if you love something, give it away. And you get to share the newness of it twice.
Yeah.
Because she had asked me, she said, how do you experience something to the fullest? You share it. Because then
Yeah.
you get to have that new moment twice. And I was like, whoa. And, when you look at life in that way, you become so creative that you're not like in competition with all these other people. Shit isn't so high stakes. Um, and it's like, no, like, I just want you to enjoy this. and experience this and really dig it. I also think that's probably how polyamorous relationships wind up working out. Like that's a huge level of like, hey, but like underneath all that, like whatever you think or want for yourself, there's got to be like that kind of genuine love for that person to allow them to experience what they want, And I think honestly, like if you just look at life, doesn't mean that I'm saying everyone should be like polyamorous or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, you know, if you have something in life that fucks, like show people a good time. Like, yo, this is gonna blow your mind. Like, I can't wait to like go snowboarding with my freaking daughter and her to be like, what? Like snow? And I'll be like, yeah. Like,
There is a cool family of snowboarders on Instagram. I'll have to find their profile for you, but I believe it's called Chasing Chase or something like that, Chasing Chance
mhm.
or whatever. But it started with this mom and dad taking their 2-year-old daughter onto the mountain to snowboard, and they taught her how to snowboard, and they've followed the thing. She's like 4 now, and now they have their 2-year-old son doing the same thing, which is
Yeah,
really cool.
I've seen it on
Um,
Instagram.
yeah. Um, there's something else I was gonna say, but I forgot.
I'm sorry,
Anyways,
I cut you off. But kids look so fucking awesome in snow gear.
yeah,
It's
yeah, it's
awesome.
fucking yeah,
I have to say this about snowboard culture. It's so cool because it's like not judgmental at fucking all. Like if you want to see like the most judgment free zone ever, go up on a mountain and look at what people are just wearing. Like snowboard culture is like go find the coolest fucking piece of gear, but like most people that snowboard avidly are broke as fuck. So so they found this one thing. They didn't have enough to buy the whole set. It probably was not even, it might have been used, it could be at a garage sale. It doesn't fucking matter.
yeah.
But you'll see someone wearing tie dye up top and then like leopard print fucking pants and a furry beard thing, like whatever color goggles. Like none of it has to fucking match. It just has to be like this cool collection of what someone liked.
Yeah.
And everyone's like just there to party and kick it, and enjoy the fucking greatness that we have to just roam a mountain,
I've seen very few like drama related clips from like skiers or snowboarders. Very few. For the
It
most
just
part,
doesn't.
it's always like, "Hey, dude, you good?" or "Hey, is this your first time?" or some shit like that. Like people helping each other out or having a good time.
Yeah,
So
1,000%. Everyone's just there to have fun, and you get to see people that are at different stages in the journey,
yeah,
So you see some people that have given up any cares in the world, and they're like the fucking noodly guys that I was talking about, where they're not
yeah.
stiff anymore, like trying to control the board. They're doing fucking backflips off of jumps this high, like
Or they're
just
just
crazy.
like even like doing simple shit, like just a small like 360 while on the ground still, but still
Yeah,
smooth as fuck. It's like, damn, okay, well that was smooth.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, if you have speed and your board's like nicely waxed, bro, you would be amazed at how easily you can just woo. It's so it's such a cool feeling. Um, I'm actually really excited. I haven't done that in a while, but I'm curious to see how my head's gonna respond to it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I've
Because
never
my balance,
snowboarded on a mountain before.
dude,
I've only done it on
awesome,
hills. Yeah.
awesome. And the cool thing is like everything is groomed out so you can keep going.
Yeah.
You know, and they kind of have breakdowns where like one run will run into the next, and they kind of overlap.
Yeah.
So not only can you kind of get creative with skiing like one section of the mountain to another section of the mountain, but they kind of have like spots where you can just stop and just
Yeah.
kind of chill,
Like rest
you know?
spots almost like over
Yeah,
like layovers or some shit.
Yeah, you don't have to go all the way to the bottom. Like sometimes you can just get to the middle of a run and you'll just see people just kind of chilling. They'll just click out of their bindings and just be hanging out.
Yeah.
And like Oregon's such a great place for it. But rather than this being a snowboarding commercial, you should totally come snowboard Oregon. Like just bringing it back to the 100th episode, I think it's really just about this podcast is about how to do life better. I
Yeah.
really think that's what I look at Happy Hoodlums as. This is like a fucking free life academy. Just like we're gonna give you all the little tidbits of shit that we've acquired. We're gonna find cool people that have lived life and have made themselves into incredible human beings. We're gonna let them kind of throw, whatever gems they have out into the world. And it's really just about collecting and documenting a better way to live and the discoveries that keep you alive, so you don't die in just the day and day out fucking monotony of life.
Facts.
And it's so important because, after losing my dad, I'm like, how awesome would it have been if I have fucking podcasts from like 1975 of my dad and his boys just chilling.
Yeah.
I'm so curious what the fuck they were talking about.
For real.
My
Yeah,
dad was
that'd be pretty crazy.
riding motorcycles and watching rock bands, but
Yeah, my dad was getting into trouble and doing some crazy shit, I'm sure. So based on what I know. So yeah.
yeah.
But
But if they would have had that foresight to document shit, like that's way cool.
yeah. And I think like
And
even with the 100th episode and going into season 3 and even going into the new year and shit, talking
Mhm.
about the type of things that we have in terms of goals for not just Happy Hoodlums, but also ourselves in general is fucking another good thing to cover. Cause it's like for the podcast, obviously we want to keep doing it. And every Thursday, it's going to keep going every Thursday. But how are we going to, like the goals that we have to make it bigger and how we're going to do it, but also the goals that we have for ourselves, our personal life. And I think continuing to just show people that it's cool to always like kind of rethink and reimagine and re-envision your life because it doesn't always have to be the same thing over and over and over. You can change it up.
Yeah.
And like you're one of the people that's kind of taught me that because you went from the weed shop to the gun shop and now you're doing real estate, which is technically
Yeah.
house shop. So it's like you're going from one thing to the next and it's impressive. And that's something that I've used going into like studying for my personal training and nutrition coaching stuff. It's just like you can always re-envision and reinvent yourself. You just have to actually dedicate and like do it.
And I'm gonna piggyback on something that might be holding people back. I know so many people that look at everything and want it to fucking match and be like logical. Don't be so smart that you're stupid. Like, don't
I
be
did
life
that.
dumb
Yeah. I
and
did.
books, okay? Because it doesn't fucking equate to you living a happy, fulfilling life. Like, everything that you learn and experience will be used in reference to whatever you do later on. And, like, a great example in my life is yoga, right? I went into yoga not trying to be a yoga fucking teacher. I just wanted to learn yoga, and have someone actually sit down and explain this shit to me. Like, what is it doing in my body? Like, that's fascinating. What's it doing chemically to my system? That's cool. What you can meditate? Like, there's levels of like peace within yourself that you can unlock by doing nothing. Like, there's so many facets to it that I saw it and I was observing the people living that lifestyle, the like holistic yoga, every single day, yoga lifestyle. And I was like, those people got it right. Like, there's something that they're doing that's like, it makes them more majestic in like their essence. Like, the way they walk just seems less clunky. and they just have light spirits, and they're very open, idealistic, or idea wise. And so I was like, I'm just going to learn this. And it took me a long time to realize, like, the way that I want to teach yoga isn't like the traditional way yoga is taught. So that'll probably come down the line. But even if I never use it for someone else's good, that is a daily, like, that is a life skill that has fucking benefited me so much. It has got me out of depression so many times. It has helped, like, on so many different levels, of mind, body, and spirit, to find fulfillment within myself and peace, um, and just endure hardships even in a more graceful way. Dude, I wouldn't take that back for nothing. And I'm gonna keep that knowledge. It doesn't have to be useful in the same fucking area. Whereas if you look at my life and you follow, like, the fact that I was always selling something, whether it was gumballs, whether it was weed, whether it was fucking guns, and now homes, like, there's a level of your life's construction where you just have to find your strong suits. And, like,
Yeah.
those, I believe, are things oftentimes you just fall into. Like, it took me a long time to actually observe my life and be like, oh shit, I guess I just sell things. I guess that's
You're a
fucking do.
salesman, motherfucker.
Yeah, like, I was like, I find something better to sell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's where that light bulb kind of clicked on in my mind, and I realized, like, how necessary selling is. It's really just providing a service. Everyone's selling and buying something, you know? But I look at it differently. I kind of take away that, like, ugly connotation people have sometimes, and I'm like, no, what I know could change somebody's life. How I take care of you could save you from fucking up dramatically by having somebody else take less good care of you? And so I just need to, I'm going to constantly be inventing things and offering them, because that's part of what life is. You know, you can't just bank and be like, what's coming to me? What's coming to me? What's coming to me? And not focus on what you're actually giving.
Yeah, for real. It's like when you have like a service, for example, and you're like, so we could even go to like self-employed people who are starting
Yeah.
out. It's like let's say you're doing the work and all this, but you're getting like bare minimum, or you're getting maybe one or two clients or customers here and there. But when you start to really dive into providing more of a personalized experience and more of a personalized service for each of your clients, you probably see more retention and even more word of mouth that, oh my God, this person is amazing. They do phenomenal work. And then they
Hmm.
bring more people to you. And I think that's one strength that you have in terms of like doing that type of thing. You create a personalized experience for each person you're interacting with. And that
Yeah.
creates a much larger client base of clientele for you, and it brings more people, and it makes it a much more enjoyable experience, because like taking someone new to the gun store and having them work directly with you is like someone who's never really held a gun, like we were talking about, had a great time and now wants to buy their own gun because of you. And
Yeah.
it's like, I think that type of way of thinking, not just with business or services or things like that, but just in life in general. It's like, if you can create and not even a fake, I'm not talking about like pretending to be someone you're not, but like
Dude,
if you're just
you just,
interacting with someone in general,
you just
how
hit
do
it.
you
It's not a way of thinking. It's a way of being.
yeah.
It's truly a way of being. And that's, I guess, who I am. is I've always been really good at like reading a room,
Mhm.
um, and just seeing where people are at, just intuitively knowing through connection like what this person's experiencing. Um, and I never wanted to do things on my own. I just kind of, well, that's kind of a lie, but it's kind of true. Like when I came to party, I feel like that's just the spirit that God gave me. He was like, "You're gonna
Yeah,
go
we
and
come
just
to
have
party. Let's get
fun,"
down
you know.
anybody.
And so, like, I've always sought to like that's how I am. Is I want to be your friend. I'm just a fucking. That's the kind of person that I am. I want to like, let's go do this shit together.
Yeah.
And if I go to a place that's new to me and like I'm uncomfortable, this is why I love traveling. I'm one of those dudes that's like, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. I'm like that. I'm like, all right, I just go and see like how everything, like what the get down is, how everyone's doing their thing, and then I fucking act accordingly. But it's always way nicer to have someone go, here, come check this out, and like
Yeah.
introduce you to it.
It makes it
Kind of.
easier.
Well, they also help you to appreciate it deeper. Like they show you levels of this experience that you wouldn't get right away. You know,
Yeah.
that's the difference from going in and kind of Marco Poloing through a topic compared to having a guide where someone can come in and go, look over there. See that? That's a waterfall. Go over here. Come on. Come around the backside of this rock. And then, oh shit, there's people jumping off. Like
Or
whatever it is, dude.
we can even like go down to like something that we both know really well is like working out, right? It's
Hmm.
it's like having someone who takes you into the gym and is like, okay, we're gonna do an upper body workout. Check this out. I'm gonna show you all of my favorite moves, and they take you through all of them, whether it be like, all right, incline dumbbell bench, and then we go from this to this to that, and then they teach you how to do it as well, and then they're like, yeah, go real slow. You feel that stretch? It feels great, huh? And then boom, and then, dude, look how pumped your chest is. You're fucking massive, and it's like,
That's a
yeah,
perfect example because that's another spot outside of the gun store where it's like people get nervous, right?
oh,
People get
really
nervous,
nervous, yeah,
and if you just take that mind state to like everything that you do is about like being a party vibe, you know what I mean? Like, and it
yeah,
sounds kind of goofy to people. Like, doesn't mean that you gotta be out here doing shots or drugs or anything like that. It's just like genuinely looking to have a good experience
yeah.
and a shared experience, um, rather than it being transactional and like one sided. Like
Like, you give me this,
me,
I do this, or fucking whatever.
yeah, I don't like that aspect of like, oh, I'm just gonna have a fucking. That's one of the things that I've wrestled with, and I'm learning. I'm gonna experience the pros and cons of having like a script. You know, if it's a beneficial way for navigating someone's psyche, that's like not detrimental. Because I don't want to sell something to someone who doesn't want to buy.
Yeah,
Right? I don't want the wrong thing to go to the wrong person. I want it all to be kind of harmonious. And so what I'm looking at is like, A, did this person come here on their own accord? Right? Like with home buying, clearly they're intentional about it,
yeah.
right? It's different than like selling weed and walking down the street like, you want some weed? You want some weed? You want some weed? You
Trying
know
to
what I mean?
find the person and like,
You see
yeah,
what I mean? It's a little different situation, but um I'm wanting to experience and kind of play with having a script. Like, is there a way that I can almost perfect using language, calming someone's apprehension so they can have a better experience quicker, you know? And trying to navigate it not to be like an egotistical thing, because you always fucking call me an egotistical fuck.
you are an egotistical fuck.
Dude, that's fucking okay. gosh, damn it, Zach. Okay. I watched a movie the other day, and he deserves to be mentioned on the 100th episode. General fucking Patton.
Okay.
If you haven't watched the movie Patton, go watch it. This dude freed over 2,000 cities
What's it on?
in World War II. Fucking, I bought that bitch on Amazon Prime.
Okay, all right,
No
okay.
way I'm not about to watch this movie, and I know it's gonna be good. I think it won like 7 Oscars or some shit.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, like it's an older movie, so I mean the war scenes are kind of goofy, but I learned so much about this guy that I did not know. And General Patton was a fucking character, son. Like, bro, he believes in reincarnation and believed that he had been born many times before to be a military leader, you know? And so he was a huge like historian and loved military history. And he commanded like the tank brigades and stuff. And a huge amount of like the infantry through, I believe, northern Africa, and then conquered Sicily, and took Sicily back from like the Italians and the Germans, and then went and I don't know if have you seen Band of Brothers?
It's been a very long time.
Okay, so it's like the airborne infantry had a fight. I believe Bastogne is called like the Battle of the Bulge, I want to say, if
Okay.
I'm remembering correctly. But anyways, the paratroopers of Easy Company wound up being deep behind enemy lines and like surrounded at this point in the war in the middle of winter in the freezing fucking cold. And there were Germans on all sides of them. Well, if it wasn't for General Patton being that motherfucker that wanted to get the fucking shit done, he was like, yes, we can do it. It don't matter if it's cold. Yes, we'll get there in time because we ain't fucking stopping until we're there. And guess what? He got there, saved them, and basically helped America win World War motherfucking II because he was an egomaniac, son, and he wanted all the stripes for his shit, and he was a fucking stud. So one
Now
time,
maybe I need to watch the thing, but what that sounds like is confidence as a leader. Because in some cases, you can't help but have that level of confidence. You have to have that if you want to achieve success, right? But I think that there's a difference between that and what you got going on.
Dude, ass shit. That is some hate ass shit. That's like when other people say, like, and they're gonna wait until I'm on a T-shirt someday, and they'll be like, "I guess that motherfucker was right." They'll be like, "I told them. They just didn't like what I told them."
Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Egomaniac. Fuck.
Yeah. Like, you know, some hating ass shit, Zach. On the 100.
Hey, bro.
What?
Look, you
When
can
we get to the
always rely on me to knock you down a couple notches.
So when we get to episode 1,000, I might just fucking cry right here on fucking screen. You guys have seen it before, but not ever against Zach. He'll finally wear me down.
I'll eventually
really.
find the chink in the armor and shit.
Dude, after kicking it with my grandparents, I just see like my family is outright ornery.
Yeah.
Just fucking, we're a bunch of ornery people, dude. Yeah, we don't
Sometimes
lose
it's
it.
genetic. You know?
Yeah, on either side of my family doesn't get lost. They stand on their own too.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah, dude. But honestly, man, it's been a beautiful 100 episodes and journey thus far.
For
I'm
real.
really excited as things continue to develop because, in terms of Happy Hoodlums, I think we're both kind of finding the use of our own individuality and the content that we want to put out, and that it can kind of run parallel to each other, even
Yeah.
though they're not like the same thing. Um, and really just using Happy Hoodlums as the creative outlet that we wanted it to be from the beginning. And so I'm excited to see this year come together as I um, post a lot more of like quotes and writings and things so I can say it better than a ramble on the podcast where I kind
Yeah.
of just gloss over stuff. Because I actually I write a lot and it like that whole baskets of belief thing, right? Like you get the overview, the skimmed overview, but I go way into more depth about the topic when I write than when I just kind of tell you and read it. So I'm excited to see what happens with that, and even like integrating new levels of education that might be more useful to some than to others, but that stem from relevant things in our lives. Like I know I'm going to be putting out more to do with like real estate and things that I learn along the way in that journey because I don't want people to feel deterred from seeking a house or a lifestyle that they want. But I also realize that like not everyone's going to go out there and get that knowledge ahead of time, you know? So even if we put out a clip here, a clip there about one little thing that I learned when it comes to real estate, I might be the only connection that someone has to experiencing that, to dipping their toe in that pond, you know, before they get there, or to the gym, different things about nutrition, different things about um, like a winning mindset and staying on track and having a strategy for actually building a life. I think these things are what our podcast and Happy Hoodlums already does, and we're just now kind of tiptoeing into giving more. And I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, me too. And I think before we wrap this up, talking about like
Mhm.
the things that we have planned. So like the first thing I want to say is that this is the last episode of the year. Um,
Mm.
and so from this point to the new year, we're gonna be getting a lot of other things like lined up to launch with season 3 um and episode 101. um so like a whole new theme. You like we've already been kind of I've already been trickling it into everything, but a whole new theme to the brand. um and then also we'll be launching, like for example, me and Kemper talked about launching the Patreon, and we'll be starting to work on our actual apparel stuff. We've talked about it before. We've shown it off a few times on the podcast, I think. But through the Patreon, you'll be able to get things that we're working on and prototyping and shit, which will be fun. But also, hopefully, we can get guests back on the podcast because it's been like, I want to say it's been close to half a year since our last guest or some shit like that. So
Yep.
it's been a while, and so hopefully it doesn't even have to be every episode, but hopefully we can start getting some guests back on pretty consistently, and then um keep this shit fucking going. It's gonna be dope.
Yeah.
I'm excited, bro. I
100%.
feel I feel like it's something, and I almost don't even want to like not put out episodes until New Year. Like I almost want to just keep going, but like
Yeah.
I feel like it'll be really good to do what we have planned.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel like this next year is gonna be really really good for us. Like I have really high hopes, and so
Me too.
I think it's gonna work out. I think shit's gonna
And
get fucking dope.
thank you to all the people that have come along on this journey and anyone that's really interacted with our content, not only on YouTube or Spotify, Instagram, leaving us comments, or even just telling us, hey, I appreciate what you guys are doing. Shout out to my cousin Chris Rivera, Icky Woods, you know, Joseph, Gunner. I've had a bunch of my friends come up to me and just be like, dude, that episode that you did really helped me navigate something in my life. And it's only come from about 5 people, but they've came up to me consistently. And it was really empowering to know like what we're putting out actually has relevance to anyone that's coming in contact with it and is looking to apply it to their life.
Fact.
So I want to say thank you and give you guys a shout out and your own applause, and just know that we're looking to do this on higher and higher levels, all the way until the wheels motherfucking fall off. I'll be an old ass man sitting on the Happy Hoodlums podcast, you know. I'm,
Oh yeah.
so, yep, that's about all I got for this episode. And
Until
I'm just
next
excited.
year, motherfuckers.
Yes, sir.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Peace.